Well, another week, another victory to celebrate for us over the weekend. Felt like our guys, came out and really were intent on getting better, and that's been our message each week, regardless of who we play. And we give them the early score, and really responded from there. Didn't panic. Offense, answered with a really good methodical drive, and then defensively we really settled in. We started taking the ball away. Offensively, to have a first half where you score on every possession, getting that 10-point swing at the end of the half between us scoring with less than a minute, getting the turnover, and then turning that into a quick field goal. That was huge. Going from 24-6 to 34-6 before the half. That's really hard for them to it was hard for them to overcome. And unfortunately, we didn't put more points on the board in the second half. But there was there was an intent to what we were trying to do. We didn't convert on a couple third downs, but defensively to keep them out of the red zone, let alone the end zone, really for the last three quarters was a great thing to see. And we got a lot of guys in the game, and we continue, I think, to get better. And the opportunity this week to go on the road again, play Northern Colorado, who I think is an improving team as well. And we have to take that same approach. What can we do to get better? As of this morning, Tommy did get cleared, so that's good news. And injury-wise, coming out of that game, we were in pretty good shape. Obviously, to get a guy like Lane back, I think, and get him rolling was big. And he'll only continue to get more used to that elbow brace and all of that. But it was big to have his effort, along with Elijah and Garrett at the running back position, and to do it more traditionally from a rush perspective. So trust that we will get Rylan in the lineup as well. And I think that obviously will be an injection like we talked about last week. So, with that, I'll open up for questions, but excited about this opportunity to go on the road against Northern Colorado.
How do you think that quarterback situation will look like? Is Tommy going to be in the same role? Is he going to be adjusted at all?
Well, he's like I said before, he's going to play, and our idea would be to start him. He hasn't practiced in weeks now. So today was a light load for him, just to get out there throwing a little bit. I think we need to see continued progress now with practice. He's ran around and did some of those things, but he hasn't practiced football in weeks. So I think it'll be good to see him going, in particular tomorrow and Wednesday. But that would be the idea. Oh, real pleased. I think Callahan's maybe had a couple other weeks where just his play would have maybe warranted, but then you take the tackle numbers, and then you get an interception, a forced fumble. You need some of those flash plays sometimes to get that honor, and while he's been deserving maybe a couple other times before, to get it, I think speaks to, his ability, but his consistency. He's been as consistent a guy on defense as we've had this season, and that was the expectation for him, honestly, was to have a year where he took his game to another level, and this is evidence that he's doing that.
Early in the week, but could you elaborate a little more on Northern Colorado, just on both sides of the ball, what stands out to you?
Yeah, they've got a couple wins under their belt the last couple weeks. 2 different weeks. Their trip to Idaho, that was a back and forth game that ultimately ended up being a real high scoring affair. The game, at Sac State, that ended up being a pretty wide margin. They do have some really good players. They've been playing without a bunch of guys as well. You go back, they beat Idaho State. They took care of them in the fourth quarter. They played with Wyoming really until the fourth quarter. Kind of got away from them. I think they got good skill players. Dylan McCaffrey at quarterback is certainly capable of making all kinds of throws. Really like their running back, Dotson, who's a transfer from Sac State. I feel like they got some good receivers. Defensively, I know that's where they have lost some guys. But I think they're playing hard. They've shown a lot of different looks over the course of the season too, and I know that's always a challenge in your preparation. So it's a situation where, we can't take anything for granted. We got to go in there and look to improve, and they're certainly, playing on their home field. We gotta go after it. I know that much.
You mentioned Dotson. He's a former first team All Big Sky guy at Sac State. I guess what have you seen from him on film? What kind of challenges does he present?
Well, I think he's well-rounded. He's got good enough size, good enough feet, and then good enough speed to kind of make an assortment of runs. He's certainly not a one-dimensional guy, and can catch it out of the backfield as well. Runs hard, so he's typically a guy that you need a couple guys to rally to him to get him down, and we're going to have to be, as far as our pursuit angles, our leverage, to get him down, we got to be in the right places and really have the great effort to get after him.
And at quarterback, I think they've used two different
Yeah.
guys this season. I guess what have you seen from both of them?
Well, I do think they're similar enough where their offense doesn't have to take these big swings to, I guess, accommodate either one of them. They're both big, sturdy guys. Both transfers. Dylan's been in the program obviously longer, and they went exclusively with Dylan this past week. So, I think in preparing for them, it's sometimes you have two quarterbacks that have, they're different. And different styles, I guess, is what I'm looking at. I don't think in these two we see that. So it allows, at least defensively, you to say, okay, who's ever at quarterback is at quarterback now. They might be able to make a few different throws or whatever, but it's not like they're so different physically that we have to have two different game plans.
Do you expect David Hope to miss this game as well, or are you preparing for him this
Well, I don't. There's not a lot of information out there. When you speak to their defense, I know coming in, he was as good a player potentially as there was in the league defensively. So, try to dig as much as we can. I know he hasn't played to this point, and you try to, if he's there, we got to be able to neutralize him, because I really felt like last year he was one of the better defenders in the league, and coming in this season, obviously it was an injury that happened preseason, so he hasn't been out there at all. So, but at the same time, it hasn't been said that he's out all season. So at some point, I would guess they anticipate him coming back. So if that's this week, we have to be prepared to know where he's at. I know that for sure.
Coach, being at the halfway point within the year, 6 games in, what are you most pleased about, just seeing your team improve over those 6 games, and then going into the second half of the year, what do you want to see improve?
Yeah, I think it's just that we are improving, in every facet. I think you look at any one thing we're doing, I think we're getting better. And we're relatively healthy. I do think, your health mid-season sometimes is a huge determining factor in where you're going to be and where you can get to. And I feel like we're relatively healthy. We have gotten some guys back, and we'll continue to. I think our guys' just approach every week has been consistent. And the way you get consistency on Saturdays is by taking that same approach every week, and we've proved that to this point. This is week 7. We got to do it again. Again, not caring who we're playing, where we're playing. That whole deal. Just what can we do to get better? So I think it's just in general seeing what you want to in a football team is the one that's getting better in all facets. I think the last couple of weeks we're playing. The last 3 weeks, really, we're playing more guys, and I think that'll serve us well, both with keeping guys healthy, but then also being able to count on more guys as the season goes along.
Does Callahan have a knack for stripping balls more than other guys? He's done it up so many times, it seems like.
Well, I think he's got a knack for being around the ball. I think if you're around the ball, it was a real subtle hand on the ball this one before the half. It wasn't like he punched at it or anything. So, yeah, I think there's, with the volume of reps that he has, I think there's a feel that comes into play there. He's a really sure tackler, so it's not like all he's trying to do is strip the ball, but he knows where the ball is, and he's around it a lot. And, if you have that going for you, you're going to knock it out every once in a while.
I saw with Derek Snell in the Davis game, you had a big smile on your face when he was returning that kick, and then when he had block on Chambers' second run. Is that like a tight end connection there? Or
Oh no, I think for Derek, it's continuing to take his game to another level. Because he's taken the biggest thing with him to me is he took his offseason approach to another level. So he's become better physically, and stronger, faster. We line him up at tailback a couple times, and that's not just some fluky deal. He's got the ability to do that. The kickoff return, getting the ball in his hands is important. But then I think he's become a much more consistent blocker. So that's a position that I felt like both him and Trayton brought a great deal of experience back, but they also had the capacity for them both to get better, and I think they've done that. And we needed guys like that. I mean, the list is pretty long of guys that were good players last year that could take their game to another level, and those two, and I know the question was about Derek, but I think both those guys have done that this year so far.
I guess Nick Bella was at the game. Did you meet him?
No, I didn't see it till Twitter, so that's pretty cool. I knew he was living here, and if we gained a couple more fans on Saturday, that would be awesome.
Ready to look around with them?
I don't know about that, but maybe some tips.
Coulter, you have anything?
Hey, Coach. I wanted to ask about a couple different things. First of all, I know we asked you about the Delta formation on Saturday, but I wanted to ask you about a couple of those guys that were a part of it. First, Devin Slaughter seems like sort of an atypical member of a football team, but probably a good one, being a guy that's served his country and a little bit older, and obviously loves the game since he came back to it a little bit later on.
Yeah, it's been a neat story, and even how it's evolved. He was brought to my attention from a couple different people in the spring. Here's this big guy that obviously looks like a football player that has served our country, that's going to school here. He had a football background. Can we find an opportunity? Can we convince him to come out? It was kind of both, and I know he was a little reluctant. He wanted to keep playing football, but being a little bit older, he wasn't exactly sure how that would play out. Not having played in some time, he wasn't sure how it would play out. So he got basically, I think he pulled a hamstring probably 15 minutes into his first workout in the spring. So we really didn't get a chance to see much, but got to know him a little bit in the spring and just said, hey, if you want to be part of this, here's what it looks like in the summer, and we'll see where it goes. And he got more and more comfortable with the team, fitting in through the course of summer, worked real hard. Unfortunately, in the fall camp, he suffered another muscle pull of some sort, and didn't necessarily get a whole lot of time in the D line, which is his position, to kind of find his way. Got healthy, and I know he's down on the offensive end, playing on the scout team a little bit. I know Coach Housewright, trying to create whatever we can, saw him as a guy that we could potentially put at a fullback type position. So that's come into play now the last couple weeks, and he's bought into it wholeheartedly. He's on our field goal PAT team now as well, and more so than anything, I think he's a member of this team now wholly, and I think his perspective on what it means to go to battle is completely different than any of the other of our guys. And I think his intensity about that, but then also his appreciation for coming back and being able to play a game again that I don't think he maybe thought he ever would play. I mean, all that is rubbed off on our team, so really appreciate him and what he's brought to this team as much away from the game field as on the game field.
Omar, I know it seems like he's making strides too, and he has a little bit of a military background as well. He got that West Point prep school.
Yeah, I think obviously different deal. I think Omar went to West Point a lot to play Division I football. Didn't know necessarily how the military lifestyle as an 18-year-old would fit into his future plans, and ultimately, I think he wanted to go another direction mid-year last year, and we were able to bring him up in the spring on a visit and convince him to continue his football path here, and we couldn't be more excited. Technically he's a true freshman, but he's a second-year guy. He's very physically mature. He plays the game with great intensity and passion. He finishes. That's what we saw in his high school film in particular. He comes out of a great program in Katy, Texas. So I think he's got a bright future, and he's playing a significant role right now in rolling those three guards. I think has helped them all. I think at any one time we could put another guy in, and that's as good a motivator as there is, and they're all playing good football right now.
I know on media day back in early August, I asked you about some of the transfer receivers coming in. I know that Robbie's been here for a while, but Cleveland has just enjoyed the team, and such an interesting dynamic, them trying to fight for their own playing time, but also acclimate to a team. So now that we're halfway through the year, what have you thought of that element out there?
I think they fit in really well. And everybody's got, I suppose, a little bit their own story about why they're transferring. But it's about changing your opportunity. Both those guys with 1 year essentially remaining really wanted to cap off their college career. And we were really intentional about, what their opportunity, could look like, and also just, the importance of fitting in, to our culture, to our team, and Robbie's transition going back to January is a little bit different. Cleveland getting here in June, that's hard, and right from the get-go, it was apparent that he was going to fit in really well. His work ethic and his the way he goes about his preparation shows a great amount of maturity, and I think that was a really positive picture for a lot of our younger guys this summer. Just about working out and doing extra work and all those things. He was, you say, hey, he's kind of a pro. I think that's kind of how you'd see it with just his preparation. And then I think, as we've gone through the season, no one of our receivers has these monster numbers, but they go out and make the best of their opportunities when they get them. They block like crazy, and I think they're about the team and about winning. And I hope we can continue to get more and more opportunities to all of our, our starting receivers in particular. But to have a couple guys like that really replace a couple guys that were really good players, in Lance and Nate, and that's what we're looking for, and I think that's what we've gotten to this point.
The wide receivers room is so fascinating too. They're from so many different places, and in talking to them, they're all such different guys too. So do you think that adds to the fabric of your team, having these different personalities?
I think so. Typically that room is can get its labels, right. It can be stereotypes, and I think having the guys not only come from different places in the country, but different programs, different levels. You got Cleveland from Kentucky out of the SEC. You got Ravi, D3, but a really good D3 program. Malik Mullins, who's finally healthy, coming from Independence Community College. I think they all have a different story, but I think a similar, but different personalities, but a similar willingness to be part of this team, and how they've mixed with a big personality like Willie. I think that's been great. Coy Steele's obviously been coming back, but Coy's still in that room, and he's about as humble a leader as it comes. So I mean, it's a really it's an interesting group, and I don't think the diva or anything like that can be the stereotype is in there.
I know that when you were at Laramie, that's so close to Colorado, so probably had some crossover with the guys that you recruited. Obviously, you're recruiting out west, Colorado, Knicks guy. But did you have any crossover with the McCaffreys, though, especially Dan being there at Valley Christian?
Yeah, it wasn't for either of his sons, but I did go down there. I didn't recruit Denver as my area, but we did look at a quarterback down there, and I spent a half hour or something there at Valor Christian a few years back. Obviously, he had a successful run there, and was able to then jump to the Northern Colorado job. And Northern Colorado is a program that that has recruited that area really well over the years. And being at Wyoming, that was our goal to recruit the Front Range really well in Colorado. So yeah, there's certainly some overlap, not only with players, but that was I had the one opportunity to connect with Coach McCaffrey back then.
I know you mentioned the kind of the quarterback deal they're doing and a lot of dots and all that, but their offense in general, I mean, how would you describe it? It seems like they really want to press the edges and get their guys in space.
Yeah, they've taken it to another level than last year. I thought you'd probably classify them more pro style, exclusive last year, where now they've opened it up a little bit more, using more personnel groupings. Because we played them early last year. It was probably a couple weeks earlier than this last year, and by the time we saw them, they hadn't put a lot on film. And that's just kind of where they were at. I would suppose with just their transition. So yeah, they're doing more. They're capable of doing more. They have, I think, better ways to get the ball to more places this year, and that's certainly something that we're well aware of, and we got plenty of things to defend.
One of the stories in the offseason out of Greeley was just the roster overturn. I think they had 30-something guys hit the portal. I think they brought in 30-something transfers. Is there any crossover there when you look at last year's film, or do you have to reevaluate the whole thing because there's so many new guys?
That's a good question. I think schematically you see enough similarities, but to your point, I think there's a lot of new faces, so they've been able to take those schemes in a more varied direction. I think they're just doing more on both sides of the ball. I think some of the departures within the season here, not departures, but the injuries that have kept guys out have changed just even within the season how their defense looks. They've kind of had a little bit of flavor of the week, even as you look at the big picture, and so they're getting to midseason. You can see them probably settling in a little bit more based on who they have, but are they getting guys back, and what will that mean? I think that's always a question each week at this point in the season you got to answer.